Let's talk about the frustration and inconsistency of creating or sticking to systems. Many in my community have admitted to feeling overwhelmed and stuck when it comes to adapting these new tools and frameworks. And trust me, I have been there too. When I first transitioned from paper to digital systems, it felt like I was literally drowning in options and complexities, and there was just so much that I needed to learn. I had no idea what I was doing. But guess what? It doesn't have to be that way for you, okay? So let's rethink about how we view systems, how to build them to fit your needs, and keep the momentum going. We want to create systems that actually stick. So stick around, because by the end of this episode, you're going to feel so much more confident and motivated to really take that first step towards creating or adjusting your system. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hey, I'm Lucy Reyes, your host of the Cheerful Productive Chats podcast, where I'm on a mission to help online entrepreneurs like you focus on all the right things and kiss overwhelm goodbye. Here, you're going to learn strategies that will boost your productivity so that you can scale your online biz and impact lives sooner. It's your time to shine, so let's get started. Hey, welcome back to the Cheerful Productive Chats podcast. I am so excited about this topic, and I know I say that all of the time about all my episode topics, but that's because I really put a lot of thought and effort into what the topics are going to be about. I'm listening to my communities, I'm seeing what questions are coming through, I'm seeing what frustrations are coming about, and this topic was one of the most recent conversations that we were having in my student client only community, where my members were sharing their frustrations of feeling overwhelmed. They know they need systems. They know the importance of systems, but when it actually comes time to create them or to implement them or to use them consistently, they feel overwhelmed, they feel defeated, they feel frustrated, and maybe that's the case for you too, because honestly, like, we all go through that phase. I didn't come into this business and already knowing how to use project management tools. I didn't even know what they were, okay? I had no idea what project management tools were. I think I mentioned this in another episode where I had hired my first VA, my very first, not even VA, my very first team member, and her question was, okay, so what project management tool are we going to be using? And I was like, excuse me? Like, what is that? And I could tell that she was kind of like, oh no. I was still organized. Don't get me wrong. I was still organized in my own way, but definitely not like with project management tools, and definitely not ready to hire a VA, because that at that point, that did not work out very well because of the lack of systems. And so I understand. Okay, I get it. I even had one student email me one time who was like, hey, I was actually listening to one of your trainings from way back in like 2020, one of my first trainings that I ever created. And somewhere in the lesson, I'm even talking about how, oh, you don't need Trello, not for this task specifically. And I thought that was so funny, because it's like, well, fast forward and look at me now, right? We all reach this point where you're like, oh crap, I need systems. Oh man, like, I am actually limiting myself from growing, from scaling up, because I don't have systems, because I don't have a way to manage all of the things that are coming up. So you might be in this place, just like some of my members, where you know you need them, but actually implementing them and actually using them, now that's a different story. So don't worry, like, I totally understand. I get it. But here's what I want us to do. I want us to really start to shift our mindset around how we think about systems. And I know that it's like, oh no, we're going to the woo-woo side here. And honestly, like, yes, we are, because mindset is so important with anything that you do in your business. You're going to see that and hear that all the time. Like, it's really a matter of your mindset. It's the same thing of like, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I don't know who said that quote, but it's a very powerful quote that my husband says to my son all of the time. And it's true, right? Whatever you think is true is going to happen. So if you're feeling frustrated with your systems, if you're always saying like, oh my gosh, I can't figure this out. Oh my gosh, this is so hard. Oh my goodness, like, I don't know how to use this consistently. If that is the story that you are telling yourself, then that is a story that is going to be true. There comes a point where you have to say, I'm going to figure this out. I know I'm going to learn how to use a system. I am going to use my new systems consistently. Like, there comes a point where you have to reframe your mindset. And yes, it is easier said than done, but you have to start. You have to start getting yourself into that energy, into that frequency to be like, you know what? No, like, I am done being held back by the lack of systems, by the lack of using them consistently. Like, I am done. Like, put your foot down and say, I am done with this past story of myself. I am going to write a new story for myself. And this new story is going to be one where you're not seeing these systems as rigid structures that are holding you back. And instead, you're seeing them as amazing, flexible opportunities to help you grow further, to help you grow faster, to help you to keep making that impact in your niches, your audience's lives so much easier and better, because you have the back-end systems in place to help you get all those things done without feeling overwhelmed. So I really want you to shift your mindset and to really start to see systems as this beautiful, positive, amazing thing. And that in itself, even that little thing in itself, that one small tweak can open up so many opportunities for you in how you start to see things and how you start to implement these systems and how you start to create them, because you're coming at them with a whole new energy. You're coming at them with a whole new vibe, instead of like, oh, I need to start creating this Trello board. And then you go in and you're like super bored and super frustrated. Like, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Like, you can't work like that. Even not just with systems, but with anything that you do, whatever task it is that you're doing in your business, like this message applies to that too. You can't just go into and wanting to create like a tripwire page or something and, I don't want to do this, right? Like, you have to be in that positive mindset and think about all the goodness that's going to come out of whatever it is that you're doing. And then when you start to create that Trello board, when you start to create that system, when it's time to go into your Trello planner and start planning out your week, you're going to get excited because you're like, oh, I know this is going to work. I know this is going to help me be more productive. I know that this is going to help me stay on top of my task. And that is a whole new energy. That is a whole new vibe, right? And so that's that first thing that I really want you to focus on here. And then the second thing is focus on celebrating your small wins. Like, we get so caught up in wanting to reach the big goal, but really you have so many small wins that you can celebrate. And the same is true when it comes to systems. If you even just started checking your new Trello board today, then that's a win. If that's not something that you've been doing consistently, that's a win. Even if you just put a new Trello template into your workspace and you change the title, that can be a win, because that is something that you haven't done before. Celebrate your small wins. Look at the things that you have already done that you never did before and take a moment to celebrate that, okay? Because that is just positive reinforcement to what it is that you're working towards, what it is that you're doing. And it kind of helps keep you motivated. It helps build that momentum. It helps keep that momentum going, because you're like, oh, well, I did this today. Yes. Like in the System Savvy Society last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a Cheers to Action week where my members were implementing Trello automations based on lessons that I had given them inside of the course. And those are just simple. We started with the most simplest automations that they could create that are going to save them maybe a couple seconds here and there, but those couple seconds adds up to a couple minutes, especially if they're doing it multiple times a day. Those minutes add up over the whole week, and then they add up over the month. And that's just one little process that we're optimizing, not to mention everything else. But even those small tweaks into their automations, into their Trello boards, they were like, whoa, this is saving me so much time already. Like, it's so effortless to do this task now. Like, they were so amazed and so surprised. And it's like, yes, celebrate that. Celebrate the fact that you're even getting this one automation done. I was having a conversation with my other member, and she was like, no, like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not going to implement this Trello automation yet. And I was like, no, like, you have this Trello template. You're working on getting it implemented. We're having a Cheers to Action week right now. Like, this is the one automation that would work perfectly with this template. She implemented it and she was like, oh, like that wasn't so bad. And I was like, yeah, it's not so bad. But that is a win. Like I was cheering for her. I was like, oh my gosh, you did it. I'm so proud of you. Like it's so amazing, the little things that you do, and celebrate that. Okay, so let's shift our mindset and really start to think of systems as this positive and beautiful thing that's really going to help you scale your business. All right, so now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and like talk about how do you even create these systems to really adapt to your own needs. Because let's be real, no strategy online, no system online, like nothing online is truly a one size fits all. Anything that you get access to, anything that you learn, you have to customize it to fit your own circumstances, to fit your own needs. And the same is true with systems. So sometimes we're trying to mold ourselves into someone else's strategy, into someone else's template. And when it doesn't work exactly the same way, you might feel frustrated and overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, that didn't work. But in reality, all we have to do is make a couple of subtle tweaks to make it work for you. So the first thing that you really want to make sure that you're doing is that you're keeping your system simple. You want to keep it detailed, and you want to make sure that it's clear exactly what that system is for. So for the purposes of this episode, we're really going to be talking about task management systems. And I'm a Trello fan, so I use a lot of Trello references here. And so for your task management system, you really want to make sure that you're not overcomplicating your Trello board. Do not overcomplicate your Trello boards. I know there's so many features available to you, and that was my first mistake. When I first started trying to use Trello, it took me 3 tries because I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much I could do and I don't know how to use it. And now I am not going to try at all because I don't know. But that's not the case. Like, you do not have to overcomplicate it. I did not use the Trello power-ups for a really long time. I only started dipping into it recently, okay? Like, you do not have to overcomplicate your systems. You can keep them simple and still have them be super detailed, give you exactly what you need, and keep them specific and clear to what it is that you want to achieve with that specific Trello board, with that one task management system. So that is like the first way, okay? Because if you overcomplicate your system, 1, that's going to feed into your overwhelm, and 2, you're not going to use it because it's too complicated. You've made it too complicated. You don't even remember what you created. So keep it simple, okay? That's my very first tip here. The second tip I have for you is to make sure that you're actually reviewing the systems that you created. In episode 57, I actually talk about the different mistakes that I see people make whenever they start creating systems. And one of the mistakes is that you don't go back to optimize or review or update the systems that you have already created. I am always updating my systems because me a year ago didn't know what me now knows. I am more knowledgeable with how to use new tools. I have new experience. I've worked with more clients. I've worked with new students, and it's opened up my eyes to seeing other ways of how I could do certain things. I've changed my processes. There's so many reasons why things will change, and the same is true for you. So you really want to make sure that you're updating your system so that way it continues to work for you. Whether you want to set aside a specific amount of time every month, every quarter to go back and actually review your systems, or if you just want to do it on the go, like in real time, that's how I do it. I don't actually set aside time. That's what works for me. You're going to have to figure out what works for you. But for me, if I see that something is not working and it's been like 3 times and I've had to like keep doing this new task that I haven't added or whatever the case is, then I'm going to go and update my system. Sometimes it could be a simple change of like using a new tool. You might have a simple automation that says, add this lesson to Thrivecart. And now I've switched over to using Heartbeat. And so now I'm constantly changing that task that says, no, not Thrivecart, Heartbeat. And every time I'm seeing myself do that, well, I'm just going to go and change the master template at this point because I need to save myself some time, right? So that's what I mean by just optimizing, reviewing, refining your systems as you're working through it. Make sure that they're still working for you in the way that you want them to work for you, because otherwise you're not going to use it. You're not going to stick to it, right? Because it's no longer fulfilling its purpose. So that's the second tip there. The third tip that I have for you is to integrate the act of building and adapting these systems to any existing tools or habits that you may already be doing. And by that, what I mean by this is if you are in this stage where you're like, oh my goodness, like I am already used to using another tool, or maybe you're not using a tool at all, find like a middle ground of how you can temporarily connect the two, so where you're little by little starting to get used to this new system. One example that I've given some members before is if you're coming from paper planning, but you really want to use Trello because you can see its potential, and the only thing that's stopping you is the fact that you don't remember to go to your Trello board, or you're not remembering to go access your systems, then okay, let's keep your paper planner. Like, fine, let's keep it for right now. Snap a screenshot of it and put it into your weekly board in Trello. And then that way it's in your Trello board. And you'll start to see the difference of, oh, like I can just go to my Trello board from my phone whenever I'm not on my desk. And look, there is my weekly planner. And little by little, that's just like a little baby step. So figure out ways on how you can integrate certain tools, or just kind of start to slowly work your way up into actually using your new systems consistently. I really want you to think here, like, what would your ideal system look like? What would it look like? And then make it happen. Like, it can happen. It is possible for you to create the ideal system that's going to save you time, save you effort, save you stress, save you overall, like save you all of these things. It's possible. It starts with your mindset, and then you want to make sure that you're implementing these tips that I just shared, which is keeping it simple, keeping it clear, and making sure that you're constantly reviewing it and updating it, keeping it refined. And if you want to start small, go ahead and find ways on how you can integrate it with certain tools and habits that you're already doing. So that's how you like get into the habit of starting to create and use your systems. But how do we keep up the momentum? Well, to keep up the momentum, you're going to do some of the things that we've already covered in this episode. You want to start small, okay? Start small. Start with one system at a time. This is something I always share to my members and my clients, is don't feel the pressure of having to create all of your systems in one go. Unless you're hiring an expert like me to actually create your Trello boards for you in your workspace, you don't actually need, and I don't recommend that you go through and create all of your systems at once, because that will just add on to your overwhelm. So just start small. Start gradually creating and using these systems. Tweak them as you go. Find what works for you. And once you do that, it'll be so much easier to replicate it, duplicate it, and create a new system from that. And make sure that you're setting some realistic goals and milestones for yourself. So like I said, a goal doesn't need to be, I'm going to create, I'm going to go create all of my systems in one go by the end of the week. If realistically, one, you don't have the time for, and two, you might not have the knowledge that you need to get that done. So you really want to make sure that you're setting these realistic expectations based on where you're currently at. That's something that we cover inside the System Savvy Society that I talk about all of the time now, is like you need to know where you're coming from to even be able to move forward. So you need to know what you currently have and what it is that you're trying to achieve, and be able to prioritize the systems that you're going to be creating, and not feeling the pressure of having to create all of them. And celebrate your small wins, okay? We've talked about this. You really want to make sure that you are celebrating every single win inside of the community. I am cheering you on. I'm always available to help celebrate your wins for you. I know that in our real lives and our outside of the online space, sometimes our families and our family members and our friends don't really understand the amount of work that it takes to do something. And it's really nice to be able to celebrate with people who understand what it is that you actually got done and how hard that was, whether it was hard for you and maybe not hard for someone else, but we all know the amount of work that it takes to get certain things done. I celebrate with my husband all of the time, but I know he doesn't truly understand, and he admits it. He's like, I don't really know what you're talking about, but I can see that you're excited for it and that it was a big deal. So he's celebrating with me. But that's different than me going over and telling my biz bestie, oh my gosh, I just did this thing. And her knowing exactly what it is that I'm talking about and how hard that must have been, and her to celebrate with me, right? And so we can do that with you inside of the community. Leveraging a community is a really key part in helping you stay and keep up with this momentum of you creating the systems and implementing the systems and actually using these systems consistently, because you have the support of a community that is doing it together with you. We have co-working sessions inside of System Savvy, and you can also come and get feedback on your system. So if you feel stuck, if you're like, I don't really know if this is the right way to do it, I don't know if I'm doing it right, I feel like I am struggling with doing this inside of this system, is there something that I can do to make it better for me? Like, you can come and bring all of those questions to our system implementation call, and I will actually look at your Trello board and give you some feedback that you can implement in real time. And so these are ways to help you really keep up with that momentum, so that way you start to use it consistently. You have people in your back corner, not just me, but the community can all support you, and you're all working through this together. So it's really, really powerful to have that support of a community. And we do have that available inside of the System Savvy Society. But if you're listening to this in real time, then I have a super special treat for you because I am actually hosting the Savvy Sampler Pass. This is my second time hosting this free event. It was a huge hit the first time around. And what this is, it's 2 days where you will come in, you're going to learn how to get these systems created. You'll have a preview of select content, select premium content that's normally only available to my members. So you'll get access to that. You'll be able to attend some of these live calls that we have inside of the community, inside the System Savvy Society. So this systems implementation call that I just mentioned, that is something that you'll be able to attend for free, and your system might get featured. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, like I would love to get your eyes on my Trello board and my system, then you're definitely going to want to grab your free pass at cheerstoproductivity.com/pass. The event is happening July 15th through 16th. So if you have been interested, have been a little bit curious on what it would be like to be a System Savvy Society member, if you're not sure, or if you already know, like, yes, like this episode spoke to me, I know I need systems, it's everything else that's been holding me back from really diving in, then this Savvy Sampler Pass is exactly what you need. Whether you end up joining the society or not, like, you're still going to leave with so much valuable information, because you're literally getting a taste of everything that we do inside. So I'm talking about bonus content. I'm talking about a mini Cheers to Action sprint with one of the most important lessons that I really recommend that you implement, which is evaluating new systems. Like, that is what you're going to be doing. You're going to get one of these Trello automations that I talked about, so that way you can see for yourself how much time you can save by just implementing one step. And these are all things that we do every single month inside the society. So I'm so excited to have you tag along and get to experience it for free. So head to cheerstoproductivity.com/pass to get yours. And if there's anything that you can walk away with in this episode, I really just want you to take one small step, okay? Take one small step towards building or adjusting a system. I really don't want you to stay stuck in these negative feelings and negative thoughts around creating systems or using systems. It really starts with reframing your mindset and then implementing some of these practical tips to ensure that you can keep that momentum going. But if there's anything that you take away from this episode, it's to start small. Start small. Do something today, and then send me a message on Instagram at Cheers to Productivity to let me know what it is that you're going to do. What is your small step? And I cannot wait to root you on. Thank you so much for listening to the Triple Productive Chats podcast with me, Lucy Reyes. To get the full transcript and all the links mentioned in today's episode, go visit the show notes where everything is linked there. And before you go, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you know once the next productive chat is released. Talk soon, and cheers to your productivity and success.